It is 1 o'clock and this meeting will come to order. The first item of business is the roll call, and it looks like all of the trustees and the treasurer are here. And now we will have the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and next up, we have the pledge of allegiance, we just did that. Public comment. We'll have 30 minutes for that. Speakers will please state their name and community and speak for no more than 3 minutes. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe a level of civility and decorum appropriate for a public meeting. No disruptions from audience members will be tolerated. So our first person up is Heather Greenman.
Sorry, I tried to time myself to remember. So Heather Greenman, Post Falls. Thank you for your service and welcome to the board, the 2 new members. I don't know if I should offer to buy you a drink once in a while because it sounds like you may need it. I certainly will offer you my prayers as I pray for all the members of the board. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what's offered in the summer reading program really quick. Many don't have anything to do with reading. Pet show filming, all libraries, numerous dates. Walk the runway with your pets and film. Stargazing at Farragut. Tree of Life art. Splash pad travelers. Sounds like a traveling water park thing. Virtual reality open house. Fishing fun at Farragut State Park. Dutch oven cooking and full moon viewing party at Farragut State Park. Come fly with me to Flyersville, Farragut State Park. Here's some clubs. Dungeons and Dragons, Nerf, Gay Pride Club, that would be the Rainbow Club. So I want to ask some questions to the board and feel free to answer this silently in your mind. I enjoy fishing, camping, and Dutch oven cooking. I do enjoy going to water parks. I enjoy nature and discovery and art. Should you and everyone in this room and the taxpayers of Kootenai County be forced to pay for the classes, groups, and excursions for those things that I have interest in? At one time in my life, I thought that my identity was Mexican and pro-illegal immigration activist. Ningún ser humano es ilegal was my motto and my bumper sticker. That means no human being is illegal. At another time, I thought maybe I was gay or bisexual. At another time, I was an environmentalist. Now, as I'm older and more solid, and I know my identity is Christian, wife to a loving husband, American, and patriot. Should you, the audience, and the taxpayers of Kootenai County be required to pay for classes, groups, or anything else for any of those identities I thought that I may be, or I know that I am now? I hope the answer was no in your minds. If your answer was yes, then I challenge you to reevaluate your views, because then you are then a supporter of socialist policies. So we are a constitutional republic that believes in hard work and personal responsibility, not a socialist country that believes in forcing others to pay for things that are not their own responsibility. Please act accordingly to the system of government that we have, cut down the budget, and don't force others to pay for people's stuff and things through the form of raising taxes. I'm okay with volunteers. I'm okay with charity. I'm okay with people having whatever groups they want. I don't care if someone wants to identify as an animal and they want to have a party at the library. But what I'm not okay with is being forced to pay for those things. So I really encourage the library to look into volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have, sorry if I murdered this, Jacob Karnowski.
Hello, I am Jacob Karnowski from Spirit Lake. For some, the library is just a place to read the latest bestsellers or borrow a DVD for a movie night. While this certainly plays a major role in our statistics, it is open access to information from diverse viewpoints and for diverse audiences provides real value. Our ability to lend and borrow across the cooperative information network multiplies our ability to serve our communities. For example, homeschoolers use resources from across the panhandle to enhance their curriculum. Each community is unique, so each library has unique challenges and opportunities. The board needs to recognize that one size does not fit all. In an 1898 article, Catherine Sharp wrote, "The library is a laboratory, a workshop, a school, a university of the people from which the students are never graduated." This is why we offer a variety of programs to enhance lifelong learning. We provide services to anyone who needs them. We also strive to maintain our collection of literature, which has stood the test of time. Books are consumables. They wear out. They become damaged. They get lost. We replace those books with new copies and new barcodes if demand justifies the purchase. Our strongest signal for community needs is circulation statistics. So if you care about good books, please borrow them and recommend them to others. The presence of a book, author, or subject is not a library endorsement. We must ensure people have access to as many points of view as possible so they can develop a deeper, nuanced understanding for themselves. One cannot truly debate an idea one has not explored. This is why we have materials some may find objectionable, erroneous, or downright absurd. Consider the topic of race relations, just for one. Read How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Then read Black Rednecks and White Liberals by Thomas Sowell. Then read more. Try Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States and Thaddeus Russell's A Renegade History of the United States. Follow their references. Check their sources. Dig into their philosophies and prejudices. Find which elements from each make sense and which do not. This is how to become an informed thinker instead of a political parrot. This kind of deep, self-paced exploration, without the pressures of social media hot takes and echo chambers, is why intellectual freedom matters, and why the library is especially essential. Explore controversy honestly. Be willing to recognize you may be wrong, whether in part or in whole. Challenge dissent with reason, not censorship. Thank you.
All right, next we have Josiah Manning.
Josiah from Hayden. Okay, so first I need to emphasize that I'm here today speaking entirely personal capacity and none of my professional capacities, that I'm speaking only for myself. It is also important to note, though, that I'm not alone or a lone voice. And although there's a way in which I really want to get up here and just say some really mean, addictive things, really vent my frustration, in the end, I decided that would not be my. In fact, I'm not even really talking to the board itself, or at least that's not really who my message is for. So there's a notion that I take, it's kind of a core notion for me, that I take from Monica R. Miller, who's a scholar of hip hop and religion. Aporetic flow. She herself takes that notion of aporia from Derrida, and then takes that from ancient Greek philosophy, various ancient Greek philosophers. Aporetic flow means, well, there's lots of different scholars that refer to it by lots of different things. It means making a way out of no way, making a life out of no life. And what this means for me here is that no matter what the circumstances are, we will always make a space for you. A space that has time for you, for queer kids and adults, for you, Black and Indigenous and Latinx and Asian folks, for you, the homeless folks, poor folks, resource-starved folks, rural and urban folks, for our elders, for our babies, for you, disabled folks, whether your disability is physical or mental, visible or invisible, for religious folks of any and all kinds and non-religious folks too. And in no small part, the fact that I will do this and that I will find joy in doing it and peace and satisfaction is that it is in fact inevitable. Because those who would squash and beat your vision of the world out of the world cannot let fail. Because their hermetically sealed and controlled teleological vision of the world is based on a flawed model of the world and of the body politic. The body politic, irrespective of what they imagine, is always already queer. It is constitutively, foundationally incomplete. And so their vision of the body politic is always already failed. And so we'll always do as we have always done. Paraphrase another favorite Indigenous thinker, Leanne Betasamosaki Simpson. And we will make sure that your faces, your voices can be seen and heard and recognized and have space and time. So as Kendra Kumar says, we're gonna be all right.
Thank you. Next person is Megan Dardis-Cummins.
Greetings, Board of Trustees, CLN leadership, staff, and those in attendance. This is my first opportunity to address the board. Thank you for allowing public comment today. My name is Megan Dardis-Coombs. I am a resident of Coeur d'Alene and a professor at Boise State University School of Social Work. While I'm here representing myself, my subject matter expertise assisted in crafting this comment. I don't really know what the current role of a library is. Trustee Hanley, July 17th. For your mission statement, the Community Library Network empowers discovery. This mission includes empowering discovery for our friends and neighbors that live in poverty or are considered on the brink, also known as the ALICE or as ALICE, asset limited, income constrained and employed for our working poor. 41% of Kootenai County households live below or slightly above the poverty line, yet still can't afford the household essentials, such as housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, and a basic smartphone plan. Shoshone County fares worse, with 55% of households living in poverty or within the ALICE population. Regarding the budget, when you reduce funding to community-facing services, like programming and unique ways of empowering discovery, those impacted the most are those who often have the least, which leads me back to the current role of a library. For the 41% and 55% of households mentioned above, the current role of a library includes social service and job opportunities, free internet and computer access, free programs, community meetings, social opportunities, and access to things in addition to books. Survey results find that lower income households approximately earning less than $40,000 a year visit the library more frequently than average and higher household incomes. Recognizing privilege when making decisions that impact others is crucial. I have the privilege to buy books, own a computer with internet and printer at home, and have the finances to buy things or stuff, as we've been calling them. I imagine some of you might be the same. 41% and 55% of our neighbor households don't hold that same financial privilege. Another paraphrase quote I have: if library employees want to make more, they can work in Washington. Trustee Plass, League of Women Voters Town Hall. Thanks for smiling. Here are some stats. The survival budget for Kootenai County for a household of 2 adults with 2 children in care is $33.69 an hour. One adult needs to make $12.94 an hour to survive. That means making zero. Breaking at the end, you have zero in your budget. For comparison, Spokane County, 2 adults, 2 kids, $36.73. So it doesn't seem that moving to Washington would be an option, and it sure would disempower discovery for the folks listening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tamara Kermelis.
Hi, my name is Tamara Carmelis. I'm a resident of Hayden. I've lived in Hayden for the last 13 years with my family. I have used all of the libraries in the CLN with the Cooperative Information Network for books and programming for myself and my kids. I would say we average a library visit at least every 2 weeks, checking out hundreds of dollars worth of books and materials at each visit. Meetings online when I can. I'm deeply concerned with the direction this board has taken with so many issues. The two newest board members campaigned on protecting the children. By cutting funding for music, books, programming, you are doing the exact opposite. Libraries are havens. They are safe spaces for the community to come together, to connect with others, to learn something new, to escape into a book. Mr. Ploss has stated he wants to give back taxpayer dollars to the taxpayers. Yet you just fired a perfectly capable and qualified attorney that the director hired, and instead hired an attorney that charges $275 an hour, a whole $75 an hour more than the attorney the director hired. And this attorney that you hired is known for extremist views and has a questionable reputation. Clearly, you are unconcerned because you are wasting tax dollars. You are wasting our money and then defunding our libraries that benefit our communities. If you truly want to give tax dollars back, fund the libraries. Use our hard-earned tax dollars to fund materials, programs, books, and even the music. Music has been a part of the Library of Congress since the 1800s, by the way. The Librarian of Congress in 1898 stated, "Music in its best sense belongs to all ages, as well as all nationalities and conditions of men." And the Library of Congress should contain its earliest as well as its latest and most complete expression. So music in libraries is not a new phenomenon. Please take my tax dollars and use them wisely and with care. Pay the staff a living wage. Don't take away programs or materials. The community gets so much more out of our libraries than the small amount of taxes we pay into them. This is another side note, but I don't want the board to have any say on our material selection. The library employs professionals with master's degree in library sciences that are not gonna lean from a partisan position. You are clearly not being the nonpartisan board members you were elected to be. Censorship does not belong in public libraries.
Next we have River Camillus.
Hi, my name is River Carmelis. I live in Hayden. I am a frequent visitor of the CLN libraries, especially the Hayden and Post Falls libraries. Libraries can be the core of a community. They bring people together and they offer new ideas and perspectives. Through the libraries, I've attended various programs, taken home hundreds of books, and I've recently been attending library board meetings. At these meetings, I was alarmed by the discussions of cutting library programs and materials. I would like to point out that an extensive and diverse collection of books as well as programs is vital to communities, especially those with little access to other resources. Many of the areas within the community library network don't have their own bookstores, and opportunities to attend programs outside of the library may be limited or costly. By cutting a combined $30,000 from adult and children's programming, as was suggested by several library board members, patrons of the library could be significantly impacted. Because of this, it is critical that the CLN continues funding educational programs and literature for everyone.
Next we have Emily Christopherson.
Emily Christopherson, Post Falls. Can I tell you what won't get my kids running out the door? Hey kids, let's go to the library and pick out some books. I know it's kind of embarrassing, especially to someone like me who always has a book in my hand and wishes there were more hours in the day to read. But not every kid is an eager reader, and that's where the magic of our library comes in. Because what does get my kids running out the door is when I say something like, hey, do you want to go build robots at the library? Or do you want to grab some free ice cream and play outdoor games at the library? Or do you want to go check out this virtual reality homeschool workshop or make puppets and put on a puppet show? In fact, that last one got my 9-year-old daughter to willingly write a script for her very own puppet show and then proudly perform it in front of strangers. You know what a profound impact the library has had on my children and my family and their confidence. Because in these moments during these programs that might seem like fluff to some trustees, the door to reading has been opened. Through programming, my kids have been able to wander into the children's section and fall in love with books, and they don't even know it. Because of our library, my daughter decided she was Rosalind of the Penderwicks, and she's traveled back in time with her favorite American girl, Samantha, and the Boxcar children have inspired hours of imaginative play, including a book club party with friends. The library is how my 6-year-old son got hooked on the I Survived series, his confidence growing because it's a 4th grade reading level, which he must share with everyone he meets. So through that series, he declared, I didn't know books could be this good. And he actually cried because he thought the story of Pompeii was so sad and terrifying. And then he picked up the next book in the series because, as we all know, when you find a good series, you have to read it all. And the library is where my extremely shy 2-year-old, who I'm pretty sure hates everyone, gave the slightest smile to her favorite children's librarian, Miss Katie. All of these moments never once were born from the statement, hey kids, let's go grab some free books and get our 15 minutes of daily reading in. The programming is what brings us in, but we leave with so much more. And I'm shocked that Chair Otteson thinks the way to inspire a child to read is just through the presentation of books, which is one way, but not the only way. The role of our library to me is crystal clear. And that's what makes it different from Parks and Rec or the Croc or any other similar program. Everything is free, and because we care about our fellow community members, we work together to fund it. So I ask you to take the 3% because I did calculate it, and that increase will cost me approximately $2.43, less than a cup of coffee. It's worth it to me. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Megan Alcala.
Hi, I'm Megan Alcala from Spirit Lake. You do not understand the purpose of our libraries and what is important to our communities. You all are going to make some grave, awful mistakes for our libraries and our communities. Ms. Blank is correct in saying that books and programs are our bread and butter. Staff toast that bread and spread the butter with so much love. And they are teachers, cheerleaders, role models to all members of our community. You will not save the money you need by cutting those programs, but you will lessen the relationship built between staff and members, which may sound very just all touchy-feely and doesn't matter to you guys, but if you or your family attend any of our programs with the intent to enjoy yourself, you would understand what the library is to your community. Water Day and stargazing have been picked on pretty constantly here. They are very low-cost programs with great impact. We get new card holders from all of those programs. We engage with people who have never been in our libraries before, and they come back. And that's not only because of what we're learning, that's also because someone like Miss Bethany, who is running that program, is incredibly engaging, and she makes learning so much fun, and she makes every kid feel like they are important. You can't get that at a lot of places. So when we hold a program like that, maybe they're not going to go inside the library that day. Maybe they're not even at the library that day, but that doesn't matter because they have been reading books. They've been learning probably about the water cycle or how a rainbow is formed. And then they have whose boat can float the best, what floats and what doesn't, have a water balloon toss. They might not go in that day, but they might take home a free book. They might come back next week for another new program. And they might remember Water Day at the library forever. Goals 3 and 4 of the strategic plan especially are what staff have in mind when they create programs. Remove barriers to service and improve the customer experience. Increase awareness and engagement with programs and services. This means that not everyone can make it to the library. My family has one vehicle. We're close enough to walk. That makes us very lucky. If we were 10 blocks away, we wouldn't make it there, but maybe we could make it to the park. That's why staff have outreach programs. That's why they go to places like fire stations and parks and Super One for free ice cream, because sometimes people unfortunately forget about the library, and we have to remind them that it is a fun place to come. The partnership with Farragut is exactly what Mr. Ploss and Mr. Hanley are asking us to do. It is a free partnership. It costs us nothing. We work with professional park rangers every time. They help lead hikes. They help with the story times, the stargazing. I'm sure those kids learned so much. The last thing I want to say is volunteers are not an answer to staff problems. They are not reliable enough. And the Harrison building needs to stay open. We need to serve that community.
Yeah. Next we have Suzanne Kearney.
I'm Suzanne Kearney and I live in Post Falls. The library has lost its way. Instead of preserving culture, it's manipulating it. In place of, in place of educating, it is entertaining and influencing. Rather than revering the literary canon, it is disposing of it for books that, quote, pay their rent. In textbook postmodern strategy, literacy has been redefined to mean anything decision makers want it to mean. Book displays are mostly one-sided, indoctrinating the public with progressive ideology. Library networks have evolved into taxpayer-funded distribution centers for the latest woke publishers. Youth are fed a steady diet of intellectual junk food, destroying any appetite for the hard work of internalizing the good, true, and beautiful. And fun, non-essential extras have become entitlements rather than privileges. At our last election, the public spoke clearly as to what it wants. Our new trustees ran on a platform of conservative values, both intellectual and fiscal. First, intellectual conservatism. As a home educator, I am familiar with the 19th century educator Charlotte Mason, and as librarians, you should be too. Mason believed that children have the capacity to internalize the great works far beyond what we give them credit for. It is a shame that the CLN has so few of her recommended books, as well as other quality classics in its collection. Please be the resource that homeschoolers and the community so desperately need you to be. Bring the great works back and put them on the displays. Next, fiscal conservatism. As it appears that the CLN is $200,000 in the red, now is the time to reevaluate. I believe it is possible to remain solvent while replenishing quality literary works and maintaining essential programming. I understand the board has been inundated with requests for tax increase to keep the status quo. I'm against this notion. Our community has already been pummeled with inflation, higher federal taxes, school levies, and property value increases. Taking more money from taxpayers is not the answer. Do what we do. Make cuts, fundraise, ask for volunteers, delegate. My son is currently in Oakland, California, participating in the Little League World Series regional playoffs. His team reached out to this community and they voluntarily gave to support this effort. And I, as his parents, gave him some spending cash for fun extras. If he came back to me next week and said he'd use my credit card for fun extras to the tune of $1,000, what should I as a responsible parent do? I would correct him, I would have him pay off the debt and teach him to be fiscally responsible with other people's money. I believe CLN can do the same. And just off script for a second, I am not against, and I don't believe anybody is against, good programs for people who need them. We are just in favor of fiscal responsibility and solvency. Thank you.
All right, next we have Rebecca Priano.
My name is Rebecca Priano and I live in Post Falls. Mr. Hanley, thank you for your recent article in the newspaper. I appreciate your approaching the new budget with considerable caution and your effort to not raise property taxes and making raises for staff a priority. I keep hearing the word literacy in these meetings. Some believe literacy to simply be the ability to read. However, the definition of literacy is more, quote, the ability to read, write, speak, and listen effectively. These skills allow us to express ourselves clearly, listen to others, gain knowledge, and build an understanding of the world around us, end quote. This is why the other classes and offerings on the extensive list that Mr. Hanley included in his article are so important. There is no competition with Crocker Park and Rec. Please remember places like Harrison, Athol, Spirit Lake, Rathdrum have no Croc Center and little to no Park and Rec. The library is it. Other entities mentioned charge fees for their offerings. When I was teaching at Post Falls Middle School, 85% of the students got free or reduced lunch, meaning they were living in poverty. Those are especially the target groups. The library is a safe place for children, not a daycare center, but especially in the summer when abuse and neglect skyrocket. Our needy folks, especially our children, can eat at the middle school and come to the library. They must learn to be quiet and respectful on hot days. Cooking classes, math and science teachers present cooking classes, measurements, temperature, sodium bicarbonate, NaHO3. Its breakdown is on the periodic chart. It's called baking soda. And hopefully at the end of that lesson, there will be chocolate chip cookies. Stargazing at Farragut. Yeah, boy, it's gotten a lot of jabs. Without a doubt, books about stars, planets, telescopes, satellites, and state parks were checked out in quantity after that event. These classes develop literacy, wonder, and they're fun. Learning should be fun. Please don't cut these programs. Our community, our children need them. The library hasn't asked for a tax increase in years. It's time. When I went to the assessor's office, it said for $130,000 in revenue, my taxes would increase 75 cents a year. I heard a quote of $250. I would gladly double that to keep our library program going. Your job as a board is to determine the mission, create policy, and oversee the general management of the library, not the day-to-day workings. That's why we have librarians and directors. Our personal political beliefs are irrelevant here. Rather than cutting funding, get creative in producing more fiscal support. That's also part of the board's job. You fund and write grants, organize and run fundraisers, find donators. Please don't bleed our libraries dry with these extreme cuts. Thank you.
Do you have time left? Or? Okay, there's just one more person, so we'll let that person speak, and it's Michelle Lippert.
Good afternoon, Chair Robinson, Director Exlees, is that how you say it? And trustees. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Michelle Lippert. I've been a resident of Post Falls for 34 years. 24 years ago, I was elected to the Post Falls School Board. I still serve as a trustee. At the time of my election, a very wise public servant offered me some advice. That wise public servant was Clay Larkin, former Post Falls School Board trustee, former Post Falls City Council member, and at that time, the mayor of Post Falls. This was Clay's advice. He said that healthy boards and effective trustees do the following. They hire the right people. They give them the tools that they need. They establish trust, and then they get out of the way and let them do their job. Clay was right. That is how a healthy board and effective trustees should operate. I am not an expert in elementary curriculum. Our assistant superintendent is. I am not an expert in school nutrition. Our director of food service is. I am not an expert in transportation. Our transportation director is. I am not an expert in school finance. Our CFO is. If I step out of my lane and begin overriding the decisions of our truly excellent staff, I would be questioning their expertise, questioning their commitment to the district, and sowing distrust. In my 24 years as a trustee and my 6 years as chair for Region 1 of the Idaho School Board Association, I've seen this happen to other boards. The chaos at NIC is a prime example of trustees stepping out of their lanes and sowing distrust. I urge you to follow the advice of Clay Larkin. Hire the right people. Give them the tools that they need. Establish trust, and then let them do their job. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who took time to prepare comments and came here and spoke. Our next portion of the agenda is the Harrison Annual Report.
Yes, and Ani is not available today, and so our communications director, Cassie, is going to present some information on Harrison.
Okay. You guys are going to have to bear with me because this is not my presentation, but I am happy to step in and help our other staff. All right, I will be reading directly. This is Ani, the library manager's comments. But just before we start, raise of hands, how many have been to the Harrison Library? Okay. How many have been to Harrison? Okay, all right, so that's a little better. Harrison is a quiet lakeside town with a population of 250 who live within city limits. In the summer, that number triples. The local businesses and Harrison Library, all prominently located on the main street, provide services to people living up to 30 miles away. The Harrison Library was first established on July 13, 1912, in a building which also housed the second grade class from the elementary school. In 1925, it moved to share the City Hall building. In 1994, Harrison residents voted to join the Kootenai County Library District. Excuse me. Land was leased from the Harrison Grange. The original lease was handwritten on binder paper, so the story goes. The original modular building was installed in the spring of 1995, with a second building added in 2007. A secure staff workroom was constructed and new windows installed in fall 2019, making the library interior bright and inviting. Harrison Library offers many programs and activities for its patrons. Sorry guys, I'm a little nervous with the camera. Harrison Library offers many programs and activities for its patrons based on their interests. We run 3 book clubs, fiction and classic, both for adults and teen. We began a weekly adult writers group this January called the Inklings. One of our most popular programs is our Young Authors Club for Teens. They were thrilled to see their writing published in issue 5 of the District Teens magazine, Beautiful Gifts. And because we have a lot of friends of the library in the audience right now, thank you. That is a donation that they give to publish this. It is right there. I meant to bring it up. Last fall's canning demonstration with trainers from the Extensions office was so popular, patrons requested another one specifically on pressure canning. This summer, the local Extension office trainer is hosting Teen Tuesdays, fun afternoons of crafting and conversation. The library is the unofficial community center of the greater Harrison area. In the winter, families, friends, and neighbors meet up on Saturdays for cocoa, coffee, and coloring. Tweens and teens know there's always some activity on Saturday afternoons in the winter or Tuesday afternoons in the summer. Adults enjoy their Wednesday book clubs, knitting group, and writing group. Even when closed, our 24/7 free Wi-Fi outdoor outlets and USB charging ports provide access for those who need it. Harrison Library also serves as a meetup spot for homeschool families to participate in a laboratory event or play with STEAM kids before heading to the park or the beach across the street. Harrison Library offers many programs and activities for its patrons based on their interest. We run 3 book clubs, fiction and classic. Oh, I could do this page.
Yeah.
All right, 6, 7. Okay, being a tourist town, my apologies, guys. Being a tourist town, not all businesses are open year round. The Crane House Museum is the only open seasonally on weekends, so the library sells photo prints and calendars on their behalf. Our youth services staff is in close communication with the Harrison Elementary staff and delivers book totes, approximately 90 books, monthly for their after-school program. Each summer, the Harrison Creamery offers free ice cream to kids who complete the summer reading program. Each September, One Shot Charlie's gives 10% off and Show Your Library Card and Save for National Library Card Sign-Up Month. Each spring, I compile a list of eateries and their hours based on repeated questions I get from locals and visitors alike. The list is posted at the library, given to the campground host, B&B host, and motel staff. I work closely with City Hall staff, sending the library programs for inclusion in their monthly newsletter. Each year, I write a brief section about the library's activities for the Harrison Searchlight, the town's annual newspaper that it's been in print since 1900. It comes out each spring and honors all the old timers. We focused on improving our signage and shelf labels over the past year. In a fit of whimsy, the children's shelf labels are bright yellow, the teens are hot pink, and the DVDs are lime green. Those may seem like small changes, but they have a big impact. In order to reach our rural communities, I created a flyer to post at the Valley Mart in Metamar. Both the Harrison Library and the St. Mary's Public Library are within a 20-minute drive. Several people commented that they didn't even know Harrison had a library, but were excited to learn when we had DVDs. This past fall, we began offering Tech Help Tuesdays to assist patrons in navigating the CLN catalog, setting up their e-readers in January, and signing up for Beanstack this May. We held many Microsoft Word and Google Doc tutorials. By far, the most common question is, how do I download Libby onto my iPhone? We must be good at our jobs at Harrison because Libby usage has increased from 695 a year to date in June to 795 this year. And Libby is everyone, okay, I'm gonna read. My staff and I have worked hard to increase the awareness of the community library network. We have over 400 card holders. Many are local families who use a single card. The Harrison Library joined the Chamber of Commerce this year. The Harrison Library joined the Chamber of Commerce this year and is featured in the annual Harrison City events and business listing. The Harrison Family Festival, sponsored by the Friends of the Community Library Network, is a welcome family-friendly event held in August. The library has a broad marketing strategy which encompasses print, social media, email, and word of mouth. Being a town with spotty internet and a median age of 58, flyers posted in business windows and on bulletin boards outside the library notify the community about all of our activities. The city includes our event calendar in their monthly newsletter, and the St. Mary's Gazette publishes some of our events in the Harrison column. To augment our email and print library newsletter and email book newsletter, I began to write a periodic email writers club to assist aspiring writers on their craft. I also reach out to patrons via the district's Facebook page, and library staff post to our local community page as well. In closing, Mr. Bob, the friendly carpet guy, left us this heartwarming letter about his great-grandparents who lived in Harrison around 1901. When a patron approached me asking for help in repairing the old Veterans Memorial in the Harrison Cemetery, I reached out to adult programming and emerging technology staff to see if they could offer guidance or assist in any way. Thanks to the adult programming's low forge and staff knowledge, the Community Library Network was able to help a small town honor the fallen. Capping off last year, Harrison's intrepid staff, Laura, our youth specialist, Emma, and Alicia, our 2 circulation specialists, are shown feverishly constructing the winning Well, third place, gingerbread library for the town's Winterfest event. That was her report.
Thank you, Cassie. Next, we have the consent agenda. And I just wanted to say that the 14th of July minutes didn't make it into our packets. So they will be pulled from the consent agenda. All right, so we'll open up to corrections or comments.
I assume minor typo, of no significance, we don't care about those.
Actually, we do try to correct the typos.
I didn't super approve these, but I know on the agenda and the amended minutes from June 22nd, where it goes down to executive session. It says the third line, individual is missing a spelling there, and also be evaluated needs a space. Very minor, and I wasn't doing this to proofread it, it just jumped out at me.
And Tom, the reason it's important because they go online and people read them, so we don't want to look like we're
Illiterate.
exactly. Thank you for mentioning that.
I make a motion to accept the past minutes.
Actually, I just had something here. So the Cooperative Information Network minutes from June 21st. The bold section where it says approval of May 2023 minutes, it says Lindsay moved to approve the agenda as amended, but I'm not seeing Lindsay as being present at the meeting.
These meeting notes were prepared and they haven't been approved yet, so they're currently draft meetings. They were just approved, I guess, Wednesday of this week. So I can't recall if there are any changes to it. I can point that out to them.
Chair, why do we approve the CIN meeting minutes when we weren't at it, and I don't think I know anything about what happened here?
Not sure that we're approving them or we're accepting them.
The consent, I thought, was we approve what's written here.
Yeah, consent agenda is just the agenda of things that are non-controversial and probably won't take very much discussion. So it's just a way of lumping everything that's non-controversial together so we can just approve it all at once. I'm not sure what it's called.
Why do we need to approve it though? Is it part of our business? Maybe Katie can tell, she's been here a little longer.
I think we're just accepting them into our minutes as part, because we want information. We want to make sure that we provide trustees and the community with information on the minutes and the financial statements, in part because we are so closely involved, as all libraries, with CIN. We're not approving them, but I think we are accepting them into our official, information that we want to go out.
So would it fit better? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that, we also are one of the biggest funders of the CIN. So naturally, we would want to see what was going on. And like Katie said, bring it within our fold.
So would it better fit under reports? We didn't approve or consent with the Harrison report just now, but we were informed of what's going on down there. So is this It's not a big issue, I guess, but it's an interesting question, Tim. Does it better fit under reports and we just simply look at it, acknowledge it, but we're not consenting to it? I don't know.
We've done it this way for a long time, and what this does do is it makes it very available to the public, because we don't put the reports on the website. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with us accepting it into our consent agenda, and because it gives us and the community a bigger and more transparent picture of what we're doing, my suggestion is that we keep it in. We have been doing this way for a lot of years. I can't remember when we did not.
Like, guess from my point of view, I would think we would have some input on, we would get a report from Lindsay or something on, and we would give some feedback, maybe. I don't know whether we have any new business that we want to bring to them, but I don't see where we have any input to this at all. Or as a board, and maybe it's just this CLN.
I imagine that the other libraries who are part of CIN go through the same process.
They do.
I think we're just accepting them into the record. We're not saying that we agree with it all, or just it's part of the record.
Okay, and I just want to say, just because we did it that way for however many years, that's when we have fresh eyes on the board. So it's not the biggest issue in the world here. I don't care if we put it off for another month, but I tend to agree with Tim. I can't consent that that's what transpired during a meeting that we were not attending. So I think it's worth at least considering it in future, possibly, if not now.
Okay, so if you want to consider that for future, and to move it out of the consent agenda, what about the financial statements for the CIN? Would you also move that out, or do you think that's important that we actually look through it? And because this is a lot of our money going into this. In fact, we're like the United States with the UN, I believe. We pay the biggest share of the CIN. I certainly want to go through and approve the financial statement.
Maybe we can refer to our treasurer. Oh, I'm sorry, but I didn't review it, to be honest with you. I did go through most of this packet, but over reviewing and accepting and saying that's an accurate statement or not. So
I think Vanessa's right. We're accepting it into the public record. And perhaps we would ask our director to look into whether or not it's appropriate. If it isn't appropriate, then we can talk about it at that time. But if it is, because we have such a large presence in CIN, having this information available not only to the board, but to the public, I think is important.
And again, remember, it's in our audit. We are responsible for auditing the books.
That's exactly right. We are, what is that, with the fiscal agent for CIN? That's right.
You do have a responsibility over CLN, and that's why we're providing you the information of what's happening.
Having both the minutes and the financial report gives us an opportunity to really look carefully at what's happening.
Another question about the minutes. First, Rochelle, good catch. I didn't see that at all, that she wasn't up on the, present, yet there's a motion. So, unless she came later and they forgot to put it down. But are these minutes, Alexa, if you know, are these minutes approved by their board, the CIN board, before they come to us? Are these?
So I received the minutes last week. These are draft minutes. The CIN meeting actually happened yesterday. It always happens the Wednesday before our board meeting. And so these are actually draft minutes for your inclusion. So there may have been changes yesterday that were approved by the board.
Okay, maybe we could get that watermark draft on
That's
these.
sure.
Because if they are approved by the other board first, then that should be enough for us to just accept them in. But that's interesting that it's a draft. I didn't know that.
So we're paying into this, but where does that appear on our budget worksheet? Is this?
In the Courier, It's part of our COHA, it's part of our ILS. We're receiving quite a bit of services through.
So if we were to see something on here, we don't have any influence on this budget. We just see that they're spending and we can see what we approved. 45,000 basically, is that what this is?
CIN is its own entity.
Yeah.
And,
66, line item 66 on the budget. Yeah, I'm sorry, line item 66 in the budget does address CIN.
And couriers, if we go.
Oh, on your white paper, what about the one in the action packet?
I didn't. That was a bigger budget. Okay.
Yeah, because it should show on this.
on line 64 is on our financial statements is CIN.
Well, I'm not looking to change anything. I just wondered what influence we have. And it looks like the only influence we have is we could say we want to raise or lower that amount on our budget, but these expenses are decided by CIN apparently. We don't have any input on those.
But we are the fiscal agent. So I think it's important to include it since it is part of what we are responsible for. Anyway, I'm gonna make a motion that we accept the consent agenda, with corrections.
All right, actually, and I had one more question on the blue page.
I think the procedure goes like this. I put a motion on, it needs to be stated, and then there can be more discussion.
Oh, okay. It has been moved to accept the consent agenda with noted changes, so. Okay, so the blue pages, Regal for CIN is 24,000. Is it just more because it's a bigger organization? Because I think that ours would be 17,000. For CLN.
So my understanding, and again, it's saying, Regal Music, current month 0, year-to-date 0, annual budget was before. My understanding is that only, the Community Library Network is continuing, CIN is not continuing with Regal.
Right, and just, so our amount would be less because we're a smaller organization.
I can talk about that, but yes, it's based on your population size and it's also based on your views, download, streaming.
All right, if there are no further comments or questions, it has been moved to accept the consent agenda with noted corrections. Yes, noted correction would also be the fact that the 14th of July minutes are not included in this. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it sounds unanimous. Passes and the consent agenda is accepted with noted corrections and minus the 14th of July minutes. All right, so our next item of business is Community Library Network June 2023 financial statements, which is an action item. So that'd be the green pages, which looks like and those out.
Does staff have anything they'd like to say to us about this month?
Just that we're at 75% time elapsed, and so when you compare the date budget items, you can see if we're a little over or a little under.
Just as a reminder to new trustees, the column, so it shows up at the top that we at 75% of our year has elapsed. And then in the far right column, it shows what percentage of the budget we've used this year in in each of those line items. So it gives you a quick look at where we're at with each one of the line items. Some of the ones that are over are because we pay once a year, for example, the audit. Or there would be databases or whatever. And that can certainly, that can certainly be something that, you know, we question, as you look down the column. Grants are income in and income out. They are, we don't overspend for our grants.
The line item 21, Viva Health Benefits, we're at 99%.
Do you
Is that just-
understand, Viva?
Is that because we're done for the year?
Maybe it's paid out early, you know, lump or something.
Or is there more that's coming?
I don't know. That's what I'm at.
It is a benefit for our full-time staff. It is put in an account and it offsets some of the expenses related to our health insurance. And so it is, I was going to give you the amount, total $2,400. It's about $2,400 a year. And so it is prorated for employees as well. So yes, essentially it's been already sent to the staff. And so that's why it's expended.
Doesn't it offset? We have a really high deductible.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it helps offset some of that really high deductible for our medical insurance.
Truthfully, Janelle is the person who just in a second tell you the exact amounts and how many staff and how many full-time employees.
But that's a good example of a percentage that's high because we don't pay it often.
So just to make sure I understand, it's done being paid for the year. Is that what, or is there?
New full-time staff that come on, they would get a prorated amount. So there could be a minor amount of employees that have left and are coming on. But for the most part, we're fairly far through the year, 75%. It'd probably be very minor, 1 or 2 employees.
So I'm assuming that our burn rate is, we'll call it that, I guess, is about a little bit under what the target is, because if we're 9 months into a 12-month year, we should be 75%. I guess expenditures, then we're almost 64. Is that right? So we're actually slightly under budget, just going by the calendar at this point.
That's true.
I think we typically are conservative budgeters.
I'm happy to. But I'm sure it goes through lumps as well, though, because there might be some large bill that's paid in July later on, so it could, I'm sure it fluctuates back and forth, but I guess we'll call it a mega measurement. Doing well. Okay.
And what about postage? We're at 101%. I would think that's something that goes on every month.
What line number?
72.
I would say that looks like one of those kind of budget items that maybe we budgeted a bit low. And once again, I'd like to say, nobody comes and arrests us if we've budgeted a bit low. It looks like it probably will go over, and there could be reasons. Sometimes there are reasons that have happened during the year for one reason or another. And Alexa's been here how many weeks?
I guess I don't know in the last year what we've done for mailings or mass mailings or, even your board packets get mailed out. And so, the postage is just the whole budget is $8,500. So even if we spent 20% over or something, it's still pretty minor.
And you did see the explanatory pages that come along with that are also green colored.
Yeah, what did she say?
Postage, it says this line will end above budget for the year due to multiple postage rate increases. So there's a lot of explanation.
That's what I'm clear that she does for that.
All right, I'm gonna move that we accept the financial reports for, the financial statements for the, for the 9 months ending June 30th, 2023.
It has been moved to accept the June 2023 financial statements for 9 months ending June 2023. Is that what you said?
June 30th.
June 30th.
I have discussion.
Yeah, there's, the next is discussion.
Okay.
Line 40, my favorite topic, library equipment. 36%, 38,000 out of 105,000 is there a reason we're low, and maybe that's we're putting it off till next year, and that's why we don't want to put it off next year.
I mean, it just says expenses this month include purchasing a laptop and 6 desktop computers. So some of it's based on the replacement cycle. I don't know of any other. I know there was an item for chairs and a table or something of that nature. And I know we got a grant from the Friends instead. And so that's why we're looking at a different speaker system and perhaps different microphones for the board and meetings to improve our sound.
We still have 64% in the last couple months of the year.
Mhm.
Or do we still plan to spend that? Or
I believe so. Like I said,
it's just been delayed.
there's, we're holding on to it. If there's anything that comes up that we didn't know we need to purchase, so we do sort of expend some of those later in the year.
I'm pretty sure that people know what they need.
Yeah, we do have a lot. We have, each of the managers have a line item of what they know as sort of their portion of it. And then timing it, like I said, if we can't predict emergencies, and so if it's still something, we'll look at it in the last quarter of the year.
I'm just looking for opportunity for next year's budget.
Oh, sure.
If we aren't using it now, basically, can we move it to next year? I don't want it to spend it just because it's there.
Well,
We have to find a
as you
place to
said,
spend it. Or maybe in advance, do some of what we're gonna do next year.
like I said, I need to talk to all the individual managers because it's not just IT, it's also facilities and other items that come out of there. But I can bring more information next time.
Okay, there are no further discussion. It has been moved to accept the June 2023 financial statements for the 9 months ending June 30th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it sounds like it is unanimous. And, for the June 2023 financial statements for the 9 months ending June 30th are accepted. Next is our circulation statistics for June 2023.
One of the things that I did today was, I was just looking at the differences, wanting to know what so just looking at it, particularly because I was here during COVID and we saw our numbers go down so much that, I was looking how are we climbing? And so I just went down a few, the difference between our total circulation, as of June, from June of this year for last year, our total circulation increased by 71,000 items. Our physical item circulation, so that total circulation is, all DVDs. Remind me what the total circulation is.
It would be things like overdrive items included, so ebooks, audiobooks,
digital
Physical
books
books.
as well as physical books.
Um,
So the physical is really like the tangible items that you can hold on to, and total circulation would include things that are just checking out.
so our physical circulation went up, almost 28,000 items. I was also looking because we were talking about Freegal. The circulation has gone up over 9,000. You know, I guess I don't know, yeah. And, internet and computer use, has gone up 14,500. It's, so what I'm saying is, I'm really pleased to see that our, all our usage of our facilities and is going up, which is great.
And I just spoke to the Hayden manager yesterday, and I was talking to the Post Falls manager today, and we have a lot of other libraries as well, but they are constantly telling me how busy it is right now. So much different picture, very busy. Yeah, definitely like COVID never happened. We're actually busier now if we go back than even pre-COVID.
Wow. So, and that's unusual for the summer. It's unusual to be super busy in the summer, so that's great.
I think this report is one I'm not certain that Tim brought up at the very first meeting we had. And it's very difficult to comprehend or visualize statistically where things are with a table. It'd be much easier, and it's not an emergency, but I think that when things slow down with the budget, and maybe when the staff is back from vacation and wherever they went, this would be much easier to see in a graph, because I can't visualize increase and decrease in circulation with all these line items unless I sit there as Katie may have done with some of them and get a calculator out and look for the differences and so forth. So it would be much easier to see a trend line, let's say over a 3-year, 5-year period, whatever, as the data is available, it can be summarized. And then I can see overall the library system has got increased circulation on this area, that area, this particular library or that one. And it could be much easier for me to see that, but I don't consider it an emergency to get that done. Everybody's pretty busy, but I think for long-term future, that would help me a lot.
I hate to disagree with that, but I'm much better in this form. So I just wanted to voice that.
Let's get this. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I would mention too, that we do an annual report that is a very pretty graphic, and that might be more of what you're talking about too. This is our sort of monthly review, and then we have kind of the beautiful annual review.
That's probably good enough.
Alexa, how do we determine internet use? Is it how many times somebody logged in, or is it, are you keeping track of megabits per second that goes over, or?
I would have to double check for certainty, but I believe internet and computer use is both Wi-Fi logins as well as computer logins on our system. So I believe it counts both. It's not hours typically, it's logins.
And does that include staff? I don't think this includes
No,
staff.
this
Yeah.
is just a public.
Yeah. Would it include, if somebody came in, checked out a laptop and used the laptop?
When they logged into the Wi-Fi of this.
Anyway, for any reason or anything, okay?
And people counter, is there something at the door counting how many people come through the door, or what is that?
Exactly.
Okay, so there's a silent clicker there. What is that? Okay.
If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to accept the circulation statistics for June 2023.
We don't do that.
Yeah,
We've
it's not an
never-
action item. Thank you.
Right, we accept them into our packet, but we don't, we have never, made a motion and voted them that way.
All right, yeah, I'll get the hang of it eventually. All right, are there any further comments or? No, okay, then we'll move on to the director's report.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the library managers report, the youth services report, the adult programming report, and then you also have some media.
So this is for us to ask questions?
If you have any questions, or like I said, I can move on to the facilities update.
I did notice in the library manager's monthly board report on page 4, the total video views and 1 minute video views are 0 across the total.
Again, we stopped putting content on, remember we
Oh,
did
that's
the
right.
virtual programming, and so we really are expecting it.
Yeah, that, I looked at that on the circulation online video programming because of that question. And it shows what we were doing and it shows that we have 0. So that was on our circulation statistics. So we are not doing that anymore because it's not needed. People are-
In-house
right.
programs and everybody's here.
Right,
all
people
the-
like the 3-dimensional programs much better.
If you want, we can take that out. We don't need to report that information. I think that might be easier moving forward, but that's you.
So the first page, the picture caught my attention, Sandy teaching moves. So this is a adult programs, adult fitness class at Athol Library. Is this a regular thing every week, or is this one of the things that brings people into the library?
We do have a program that Fit and Fall Proof. It's based on kind of physical therapy principles to keep people healthy and moving. So I do not know if it's I know Fit and Fall is a regular program in several of our libraries, but I don't know if the line dancing is, but it sure looks fun.
Yeah, that looks like line dancing.
Mhm.
Those are probably the kind of programs that we look at, or I do, with a lack of knowledge of knowing, I don't need to know in this particular item, but are the taxpayers funding a person to come in and teach line dancing? And I don't care about but those are the kinds of things that I look at saying, well, why? What has that got to do? How does that draw people into the library? So I don't want to pick on that one line, but that's an example of the kinds of things. Or here's another one, Eric Herman and his band. That's nice. Maybe we paid Eric Herman to come in and play for us, or maybe he did it as a volunteer. But I'm looking at it as a taxpayer saying that's nice. It's not a concert hall, it's a library. And I'm not sure how it relates to books. So again, I'm not looking to just pick on those. They're just right there glaringly in my face. There's nothing morally offensive about it, I'm sure, but it certainly leaves open the question of things like that. I wonder, are we funding that kind of stuff? So
Well, and
I don't need, particular investigation on it. I'm not asking that, but it just, it makes me wonder where the taxpayers' money goes. And again, it might be spent very wisely. These people may have come in and volunteered their time, or maybe they all head into the library and read a book about dance or whatever the item is, or more music.
a lot of our programs that I worked with anyways, one was a volunteer providing that instruction to the public. I believe the Eric Herman one was a paid program that performed at several locations. Like I said, I know when we were up in, one of the libraries where we had our meeting, they were actually doing the program at the same time in the park. Remember, the presenters came and thought it was at the library, but it was at the park. So it's a combination of volunteers, providing programs for our community as well as paid performances.
And it is in Athol, which is good to remember. That was pointed out today in public comment. And it was a concept that I hadn't gotten real clear on Those are communities with limited resources, very limited resources. So, it's a, yeah, okay.
Just clarify for me, and maybe Tom, you had the question, what is the actual cost for like line dancing or the fit and fall? Is it, I think we're hiring an adult program coordinator who must spend a certain percentage time figuring this out. But are we paying for extra off hours meeting rooms, or is there any other cost associated with it other than the program coordinator?
I know for Post Falls, we have a fit and fall program and it's run by staff. So staff have gone through the training and been certified. And so there may be a very modest certification cost. But other than that, we're providing the instruction. We do have some materials or ephemeral materials for like the activities. But essentially there's no other significant cost other than staff time.
And I think staff time is expensive, and I think we dealt a lot of this, we dealt with this a lot with the budget itself. And that's, I think, out of a lack of detailed knowledge of where the money is spent when it comes to programs. These are the kinds of questions, and again, the schedule, the calendar doesn't allow us to sit down and go through program by program, but it does make us feel like certain things don't seem to align directly with library function. And that's why we tended to reduce the line item for different programs. So we didn't eliminate them. They're no longer cut as severely as they were earlier in the budget cycle. They've gotten, I did look at the last set of numbers, but I think we rescued quite a few $1,000s the last budget meeting. So these are the kinds of reasons, these are the kinds of questions that come up. Again, probably nothing bad about these programs, but they're luxuries in a sense. Certain programs are, in my opinion.
I have a question on these same lines. I'm looking at what you gave us, I don't know, a couple meetings ago. Yeah. So like there's two in a row, I won't say the names just because, but I believe maybe they're musicians. And it looks like it's $1,600 and $1,700. And so is that for one performance or is that for them performing at each library that month?
It would likely be multiple performances. Usually we pay a performer a vendor one time. And like I said, you're seeing a lot of our summer expenses or expenses, they get paid after they perform essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the recent general ledger is showing that.
So it might be them performing 4, 5, or 6 times.
Exactly.
For $1,700. That's great.
So also in the library manager's monthly report on page 9, I was pleasantly surprised that Rath says Rathrum assessed its library collection arrangement. Library sections were relocated to make it less likely that these particular card holders would inadvertently access materials not allowed to project out to them, and that was due to the kids card. So that was a good idea.
Well, I think Lindsay's and a committee are invited to the implementation, but I believe all of our libraries have gone through a review.
I think I saw that someplace, I can't remember where, in one of these reports about the card implementation. Is that summarized in here, the status of that?
I don't think it is. I think I'm happy to. I know staff have been talking about it, how many cards we've issued, and I'm happy to. Like I said, we just started it July 1st, so we haven't really got that much time in, but I'm happy to bring that information to August.
And is that just the 15 and under?
Mm-hmm.
And then the library reports, youth services for June 2023. It mentioned wings of fire a couple of times. I mean, I don't know what that is.
I don't have any idea what that is, but I mean, oh, I'm sorry, what was it? Book series.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Now we have quite a few other things. If we move on.
I can do facilities update next if you want. Just really quick. Randy and I have been talking with the architect and they have been talking with our engineer. We'll be bringing something to you guys about the Harrison project to review the site and our ADA compliance, the ramp and sidewalk as well as the water issue. So.
When, did you say, I'm sorry, did you say when you will or you will be?
We will be.
Okay.
So back on the board, I was about to ask, library reports, page 6, you got a picture of one of the staff attending an ALA conference in Chicago. That's where Wings of Fire was fixed.
What page was that?
Page 6 of the library reports, youth services. Are there any more ALA conferences this year that anyone's going to attend? Which we asked for next year's budget to not have it, and I don't know how we ensure that happens, other than take some money out of the budget.
ALA
Where we-
is doing sort of a main annual, but they also have some smaller ones. Usually staff just would attend in the main annual one. Yeah, so it's occurred, so there's no more this year planned. I mentioned the PNLE conference. There's an outreach and rural service conference that's coming up that we may send one person to. So we still have a little bit of money in the year and we're looking at September, October opportunities, but no more ALA.
Does ELNA, is that a subsidiary of ALA?
No, it's Pacific Northwest Library Association, and that includes Alaska, parts of British Columbia, Washington, Idaho, Montana, I think. It's a regional association. That's the one that I invited you to, all the trustees to, because it's located in Moscow this year. It's not very often in Idaho, I'll be honest. It's a lot of times moving around between all those states. So I don't believe there's any affiliation.
Okay, and I don't think that you have to do it. Our previous director had made up her own little page, just a one-page thing. I didn't know if you're too busy or it just wasn't your style.
Well, we've had so much budget stuff, so budget reports have been mainly, I'm happy to, and like I said, I'm happy to talk about our new cards and the implementation of that for next month, and anything else that people are interested in.
Plus, you bring your own style, is that correct? So maybe there may be that you'd like it different.
I will say that in the past, I usually do like a PowerPoint and show photos and do some things that I'm really proud of and sort of showcase that for the board. But I'm happy to do it in a paper format if people just want to read it, or in person. Like I said, I usually do a PowerPoint. So I can try a few things if you guys are open.
I don't know that I have a preference. I just was curious.
Yeah.
All right, so are we done with all the director's report? Discussion, questions? Well, then we will move on. The next item of business is bid award for Hayden Roof, and Alexa will speak on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Chair, could you please address that phone that keeps beeping? I don't know if it's in the audience but it's really starting to get on my ear.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Would everyone please silence their phones? Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, we had the bid out for the Hayden roof and we received no bids. I know. I know.
We gotta all grab our buckets and our tar. Volunteers.
So it's difficult to know exactly what happened, but we believe that, we approached the roofing community after their summer schedule and their work capacity. So the late in the year. So based on the recommendation of the architect,
we would reevaluate in early spring. We asked about October, and due to our climate and the tar and the, impact that might have on the roof. She's not recommending that. So early spring, and I can talk with our council about, I believe, but I'll check with him that we may not need to go through the whole bidding process since we did a bid and no one bid. But I'll make sure to determine whether or not it needs to go out to bid again, or if we can just hire a contractor in early spring. I know it's unfortunate because there has been some water intrusion into the facility. But at this point, there's not much we can do. So the recommendation of the architect is to wait until spring and to find a roofer then.
Are we sure, as the architect reviewed it, that there wasn't a mistake and like
Yeah,
do not exceed or something put in there that they're just turned anybody off?
yeah, we did have a walkthrough and we had one roofer come through. From what I understand, having a public works license in Idaho is limiting. And from what I understand, we did everything we could to make it as appealing as possible. We were giving them 30 days to complete the work, which is likely like 10 days of work or something like that. So we were flexible in the terms of like when it was finished, so end of September. And so we just were not successful. But the architect's feedback from the industry is that they pretty much have all the work they need to finish the year.
Do we get on someone's schedule this year for next year?
That's it. I'm gonna check in with the council and see. I think, like I said, I believe that since we've gone through the process, we may not need to rebid it and can just hire someone in the spring.
I think something over yourself. Can we get, even if we put it off until spring, can we maybe get someone to give us a commitment to doing the job and maybe putting in some flexibility for inflation of materials or labor, but give us a real number, get it on their schedule so we're not pushed off to the year after. I know the contractors are busy. There's lots of stuff going on out there.
I'll bring back more information in the early winter again.
Is there any further questions or discussion on that?
That was about the roof, but was there also talk, or was that later about the ramp or the sidewalk or something? I thought there was another thing there.
That's Harrison.
Harrison, okay.
And again, we're working with the architect. We have a meeting scheduled, I think, now just today, to review costs and what we could do.
Okay, if there are no further questions, and we'll go to break.
I was just gonna ask, it's this food math here. Are we a half hour ahead of our schedule? I think when I started adding up the different, just so we can pace ourselves for the rest of this meeting. We had 30 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I think so. So we want to double check it if it's necessary. Then we know what we can do to the next session, but or we can calculate on the break.
We just have budget after this, right? Basically, so.
I think so.
Yeah.
We don't have to drag it out. We can actually leave. Can we leave early? Okay. How often does that happen? Okay, then.
Can we move to take breaks, Katie?
It's not an action item, so I guess I just declare we're gonna have a break for 15 minutes, which we don't normally have that long. You did get that when I was looking at the agenda earlier. Anyway, so we'll see everyone back in 15 minutes. Okay, we are back from break. We'll go into our fiscal year 2024 budget discussion.
I'd like to start with public comments. That's okay. No, just the summary count like we did last meeting. That's okay. Okay. So at last meeting, we had reviewed items that we had received. So this is from Tuesday, July 18th after 10 a.m. The Community Library Network has received 48 emails from library patrons and community members. 32 letters were in support of taking a 3% tax increase to support libraries. 16 letters encouraged the board not to increase taxes. And then specifically, 8 of the items that were in support wanted the continued operations of the Harrison Library.
Actually, I didn't read them all, because I didn't get to the ones that came in yesterday or today. But a lot of the ones with Harrison, just strictly, we're dealing with Harrison, they just said keep it open, not necessarily asking for a tax increase.
Did you want me to read the ones that were specific to Harrison?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, well, sorry.
It'll take me 1 minute. Over time.
Do you have any other discussion while she's looking through that?
Not that, for me right now, not that wouldn't take her concentration. Alexa's concentration, sorry.
Do we need to do this? I mean, I think talking about the budget is what, I mean, this is gonna take some time and it's something that we could do later.
I can.
Yeah, maybe we could come back with it.
Well, all of the trustees got all of the emails. So
Yeah, I mean, we can check ourselves and see what.
8 of them mentioned Harrison. How about if I say it that way?
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't get the other numbers. So 32 were asking for 3%. You had a number for ones that didn't want to increase.
16 letters encouraged the board to not increase taxes. And then just for recollection, last Tuesday, I mentioned that the library had received 21 emails. 17 of those were in favor of a positive or small tax increase, and 3 were not, and 1 was neutral. And I should also mention that we stopped this as of 10 a.m. today. And so I'll bring any more information that we received since today's cut off to next Tuesday's meeting.
So I'm interested in the sheets that we have in front of us.
Okay, and I was also going to mention, there had been a question about Friegel, so I got some information on that, and there was a question about Sunday hours. So, do you care which order? Okay, so I did do some research on our Friegel contract. I reached out to our representative, and what I've discovered so far, I've not gotten all of the information, but our subscription for streaming runs May of 23 to May of 24. And so I can contact our provider to see if they would consider allowing us out of the contract, if they would consider giving us a discount because of the sort of financial hardship that we're in right now, and any other options that might be available. I will say that the staff mentioned to me that we have in line 32 several databases, and they have a very strong feeling of recommendation of which database they would recommend curtailing based on use and cost per use. They are strongly suggesting LinkedIn Learning, which is $15,750. So I do think in terms of the budget, there are options to reduce the database line item, if that is what the trustees are interested in. And I would like to come back with more information about all of the use of all of our databases. And typically what happens is the staff review use and cost and make recommendations. And so at this point, like I said, I have just half the information about Friegel. I will mention that I did ask Friegel about options for our new minor cards. and explicit lyrics and different options. And so there's a lot more about Friegel that I did not know of. And so I'd like to also maybe consider us bringing it back in November to discuss our next children's card or our next step in that process, because we may want to make some changes in that as well.
So Friegel is shown on our budget under database. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's line 32 of CLC databases.
So looking at so what the staff was doing was backing up and looking at all of them and saying, perhaps instead of not using Friegel, there are other databases that we would not, that we would consider.
Yes.
So just pinpointing Friegel is maybe not taking a big enough look.
Right. And
Okay.
again, LinkedIn Learning is over $15,000. It's also in that range of fairly high cost. And the use of LinkedIn is much lower than the use of Friegel. Friegel actually has a trend of growing use. And so it's very popular. And so generally speaking, what library staff do is review use, and that's what we use as our primary factor for continuing. We also look at what area, or like we have EBSCO, so sometimes that's magazines, newspapers. We have Mango, which is language services, ProQuest newspaper. So like I said, we try to make a selection based on what the community is interested in. Genealogy databases are very popular. So again, we usually guide through cost and use. And usually the staff make those recommendations. And so I'm happy to do a presentation on our full database stuff, but I probably am not going to be able to do that today. So I'll just say that like I said, I don't have all the information. I can bring more information hopefully Tuesday about Friegel specifically. Like I said, I did ask for a discount. I did ask for other options. And so there's more about Friegel that we haven't explored that we can look at. But it's a very popular database, so it wouldn't be my recommendation if you want to remove $15,000 tentatively, that it would probably go to removing LinkedIn Learning based on use.
So, we were actually, even before John left, which was several years ago, Friegel's use was going down and everybody was looking at it. And then it started going back up and now it's going up dramatically. And so just looking at that one and not looking at the whole picture wouldn't be I'm really appreciative that you brought the bigger picture to me. Thank you.
Where can I find out about Friegel and what you said this was a LinkedIn database? You had another name.
On our website, so all of that is accessible with your library card. Most of these are available from home, so some research at home. I'm happy to do a presentation as well.
What did you call the other one? You said LinkedIn.
It's called LinkedIn Learning.
LinkedIn Learning. Okay.
And then if we're good for that one for a little bit more, I'll move on to Sunday hours.
Actually, I had a question.
Okay.
The same line of OCLC, or line 32, databases. It went up considerably from last year. Was there some other necessity that we had that went up dramatically, or because most of our, it seems like a lot of things we're trying to reduce, and that one went up by like 17,000 or something.
I apologize, that's probably a general question. Yeah. I can tell you that we spent about 8,000 for EBSCO. There's a database called Data Axle, which was 2,500 in ProQuest. I don't want to go into too much about what we pay, but usually all of these are based on our population size or use. Mango is 6,000. Like I said, the two largest by far, about 16,000, about 17,000 are Friegel and LinkedIn Learning. So that's again at least 30. There's other items, like I said, but that's the bulk of it.
So it could be that the cost, we're getting the same amount, but the cost of the program, which we have the cost of the database itself has gone up. That could be part of it.
Well, all I could find on the contract was that pricing includes 5 downloads and then limited streaming for CIN or for Community Library Network colleges. Like I said, I can bring more information when I hear from the rep on Tuesday.
Are these databases mainly used by people at home that log in and use their card and get access to it, and then they stream music at home, or they do LinkedIn learning videos or something at home?
I mean, I feel like a teacher. I'm like, go home tonight and use your card and check out our website and you'll see all of it. I think you'll be really impressed with the different things. Like I said, I know we have genealogy databases, we have auto mechanic stuff, we have all kinds of cool stuff. So discover. Okay, so I did bring some information on Sunday hours as requested, and that is on these sheets. And so this is based on our annual statistics ending 9/30/22. This has our hours, our current hours for Post Falls and for Hayden. Post Falls is open 60 hours and Hayden is open 59 hours per week. I do include our annual door count, circulation, programs and programs attendance. And then the items that are highlighted in blue are specifically from just June of this year. Post Falls average Sunday door count at 103 people. Post Falls average Sunday Wi-Fi use at 68 logins. Post Falls average Sunday internet use at 52 logins. And Post Falls meeting and study room at 4 bookings per day. And then you can see Hayden on the next page.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay.
So Post Falls meeting and study room use coverage per day, how many of those for Sundays?
That's for Sunday.
Okay.
All of those are Sunday. If it's blue, it's Sunday. And I will say that it's not the number of people in the meeting, that, they can have 50 people, 80 people in this room. It's just the number of reservations that we received. And study rooms often have several people as well. And I will say on some of these numbers, it was a little hard. It's an average. So on a couple, we had 7 people using meetings on a certain day. And then other weeks we had no one. So it is an average figure. And then on the second page for Hayden, you see similar numbers, 142 people by door count, 68 people using Wi-Fi, 33 people using internet, and 3.5 bookings. And so in libraries, typically Mondays are our busiest day. And then it's kind of one of those downward sloping. So Tuesday gets less, Wednesday gets less, Thursday gets less, Friday gets less, Saturday gets less, Sunday gets the lowest. So that's kind of the trend on use from the public. So this is our slowest day on Sundays. And so for your consideration, if we did eliminate Sunday hours at Post Falls and Hayden, I'm estimating that we could reduce through vacancies, so no elimination of filled positions, but reduce a part-time position that's currently budgeted less than 20 hours a week, wage only at about 16,000. In our budget, it's at 87%, so about $27,800 could be captured in this budget by my estimation. And again, what those funds are used for, it could be both on salaries to physical and e-materials or programming or whatever else. But that's my first estimate on what we could save. And again, this is just staffing, so there may be air conditioning and heating and other sort of relevant savings as well. But just in terms of a quick estimate on staffing, this is what I would estimate.
That's one part-time per location?
Per location.
And so I'm sorry, 27,800 per location, or that's the total?
Total.
Okay. So 2 part-time, is that?
And again, I'm kind of mentioning that, I believe we'll probably have a vacancy in the next month in one of those positions. And again, my recommendation would be that, maybe we look at this in September to not create kind of a hardship where the position's vacant and they're still trying to provide Sunday coverage. Or some model of transition where we could, fill it with on-call or temp staff or things like that to transition. But ideally, I would recommend, trying to capture it when it's unfilled.
Why just these two libraries are you looking at? Or is this the only ones that have Sunday hours?
Yes.
So none of the others? Did we used to have Sunday hours, some of the others, and we cut back?
Not to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything that shows that.
And one librarian runs the whole show at each of these on Sunday.
I would say 3 staff are probably working about 5-6 hours per day.
So how do you eliminate one position
Right.
just by, or, yeah,
So the staff that are currently scheduled for Sunday would work Monday through Saturday. And so their hours would be redistributed during the other open hours.
on Saturday instead of Sunday or something?
Exactly. And this is just for your consideration, because I know when I went through the list of things for, it was a consideration, so. I can also, talk about the new, worksheet that I can.
I have a question. Do we have any idea, what our door count is for other days of the week?
I can provide that.
Because I don't know, for the 142 people that come in, they would be unhappy. So that would certainly be a consideration.
And I will say that, some of our door count information I have from January and some of our study room use and stuff, we had some software change. And so, there's, more of we're more typically used to, gathering information on a monthly basis. And then once that data is gathered, we may not have it on hand. So I can provide, what I can.
Just a ballpark.
I think that's important too, because you can see if our annual door count is 162,000, right? I mean, we're busy. And
Yeah.
what days those are and what hours those are.
But mostly what I'm looking at is how do the, the average people who come in on Sundays, how does that day look? I believe you that it's the lowest day. But how does that compare with what we have? Because, yes, we have to look at, we really have to look at, in order to increase salaries, there's no way we can't look at everything else because we only have a certain pot of money. But I do know that if I were one of the 103 people that the doors were shut on Sunday, that would upset me considerably. And so, what does that look like compared to how many come in on our other days?
I'm happy to start working on that. It can take a little bit of time.
Oh, yeah.
I know we have, so this was just a quick snapshot. People wanted to know what savings. I'm not sure that, we're receiving a lot of benefit for access on Sundays. And so for me, I'm not sure $28,000 would be enough savings to eliminate Sunday service at 2 locations, just to be honest, but.
You were receiving a lot of what?
We're providing a lot of service. We're here for meeting rooms and study rooms and internet and Wi-Fi and checkout and programs and in the summer cooling stations and in the summer, winter, we're providing a lot of service and access to all of those resources.
I guess more than I expected is when you did this. I know, I'm looking at the meeting rooms and I'm like, oh, that's pretty high usage for that day.
It is, and if you come by, you'll see our study rooms are constantly in use on Sundays in a lot of our libraries. So it's just a snapshot. But again, if it was like $100,000, I'd be like, well, that makes sense. If it's, 30,000, I think it makes me pause. But it's for your consideration. I'm happy to provide more data.
I feel the same way, the 27,800. I expected if these 2 locations closed down for every Sunday an entire year, they would be more than that. So that is kind of sickening to think that we would close down Sundays for that amount. I don't think that that's a good idea personally. I did have one other question. Oh, in all the other states you worked in and just your knowledge of other states, Is it normal for libraries to have 7 days a week? Or is it just up in the air?
It's usually based on the population of the community. And so, you know, Hayden and Post Falls and again, 50,000 or 100,000, you're more likely to see it 7 days a week. If I put on my little librarian hat, I'm like, it's great because again, our computers are open to the public, our Wi-Fi is open to the public. So for access, it's great. You know, I've worked in libraries that have longer hours on Sunday. They're open 12 to 9. And you see a real decrease from 7 to 9 in patron use on Sundays. And so I think we have a pretty efficient model by only being open half day. And like I said, we staffed it pretty lean. So 3 people is not that many people in a facility of this size. So it's pretty lean right now.
My thoughts are that I wouldn't want to close this down. People from Hayden may come over and use this. I know way back when my oldest kids were in college, we didn't have much for internet at home, and they would come in and use the internet for doing homework or for studying, for getting that. But I wonder how much of that is people studying and that's why they're using the rooms, or if we have any way of knowing that. Or can they still, I guess they could still get Wi-Fi if they sit out on the benches out here or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Sunday is a big homework day. And people will drive from a smaller community to a library that's open. So if that's all they have access to. So I think it's providing access for our whole county. And so, but I promised I would bring it. And so that's my best guess of what we could save or pull from salaries and the method that I would do that. But I did bring new worksheets. So they're on your table as well.
I'm going to go back also to that Sunday deal. I think, and I don't know where it came up, it was early on in the budget cycle when someone, I don't remember who it was, asked about what savings we could possibly get from reduced or eliminating Sunday hours. I think based upon what we have here, it's insufficient data. We were looking at 1 month snapshot, and as Katie said, and how the Sunday compares the rest of the time. And so I'd say we don't even have enough information to make a qualified decision if we were really debating eliminating or reducing Sunday hours. So I think that based on that, and because we now have a draft budget that's actually balanced, and the optics for a new board to reduce hours or eliminate Sundays would not reflect very favorably at this point. So I'm not in favor of further pursuing the Sunday hours issue at this time. That's me personally.
Well, I know many on, at these tables don't, subscribe to this, but the Lord blesses people and we keep the Sabbath day holy. I think having people work on Sunday is actually to our detriment.
I'm pretty sure not everybody in this community holds that, so I think we need to look at the whole community concerning hours.
I would just recommend, like, to Tom's point, it takes a lot more than a week or two to put together a full analysis of all of our use and making a recommendation. And so I think, you know, we do probably need to look at the efficiency of our schedules and our branches. But again, maybe in preparation for next year. It's a very short timeline this year to be talking about it, but I did want to raise all of those suggestions as something for a more long-term feasibility model. I did prepare based on our last conversation where I thought we were at. And so, and your handout now is option A. And then I did include Sunday closure, so we can ignore that one. But what I had understood from option A, this is what I heard yesterday or the day before. This salary line item now reflects the elimination of the facility position, the 24-hour week facility position. That was 22,000 and change out of salaries and 2,500 of benefits. It's also reflecting, the elimination of library of things. And then it is balanced and it leaves 338,500 in the collection. And again, I'm just gonna still say these are worksheets and rough numbers, and that Janelle will be back and will be able to provide the exact.
Now, as I say, it also includes a rather significant bump up to the programs that were being devastated and getting a lot of bad press. It is a lot higher here, isn't it? From what we first chopped into it, and then we brought it back up now, right?
This was reflected in our last conversation.
Right.
Option A was mainly what I came back to you at the last time and suggested maybe more for programming and more for staff. And this is, we had debated a little bit about the collection. And so this is kind of what we could put back into the collection based on pulling that part-time position. So like I said, the items in green are what I changed from our last conversation on Tuesday. And again, it's the facility position removed and basically added to the collection, and it's the library of things removed and added to the collection.
On the library of things, we aren't eliminating the library of things. We're just not putting a fund amount into it
Replacement
this
items.
year. Okay. I want to just tell you, I'm not trying to drag this back. This was a comment I would have wanted to put at the very, concerning Sunday hours. I understand that to really look at them, you'd have to do a lot of work, but I super appreciate the ballpark figure. Like Vanessa said, it's like, oh, I would have thought it would have been more, like you said. So thank you very much. The ballpark was really, really helpful.
And since we're going back to that subject, I do agree that there's some future consideration for what Rochelle said. It is nice to keep Holy the Sabbath day, but I know there are people that probably work all days except for Sunday, and it's the only day they have an opportunity to go to the library, so. But good point, Rochelle.
So, Alexa, if I go back to the original sheet that we were given here, I think when we started the whole thing, it looks like children's programs was being proposed 38,700. And on your both columns, you got 30,000. So it's still an 8,700 drop.
But not nearly as
But
bad.
not half like what I was suggesting. And the what's the other one? Adult programs, 17,000 now, where originally it was 20,700. So that's 3,700 drop. We can handle that, can't we?
It will have an impact on the number of programs that we offer, so I don't want to not state that pretty clearly. I think I think we can explore alternatives, like I said, through our friends and our foundation and donations. And I think it's a good point too, that we do receive monies throughout the year that we can also put back into our budget for collection of programs and things like that. So it will reduce programs, but we will do everything we can as staff to minimize that impact on the public.
Then what about, I brought up on the communications, so Cassie's slick, expensive booklet that went out. If that could be turned into a newsprint type of booklet, like what NIC does for its classes, or Parks and Rec, and could we save 10,000 in printing? I don't know.
I think that's a good conversation for a little bit, maybe different time or a longer conversation. Cassie and I both come from different organizations where we seek out sponsorship and other sort of branding and things like that, opportunities. And so I think there's some opportunity for us to be creative in getting as much as we can for taxpayers with the dollars they spend. I heard a couple of comments about the communications stuff. So, you know, we generally have a standard that we like to achieve. Is that standard too high? Maybe, maybe just a cover, maybe the inside. But I do like the library to appear professional in all of our communications. And so, it is possible to, modify a little bit, and you can add that back to programs or collection. I'm okay with kind of where we're at because I do know we're gonna probably get some grants or we're gonna receive some funds. And so it's, as I kind of mentioned before, this in my mind is our best guess of what we need to move forward. So I don't know if that's answering your question. I'm trying to, but.
I would also like to say, as you noted on our financial reports this month, many of our expense accounts are below budget. And we have traditionally ever since I've been on the board, budgeted conservatively, so our expense accounts may be budgeted for a little higher, and what we budget for, what we look at for our best guess for income, maybe a little lower, so we're conservative. So we may end up with monies at the end of the year, based upon the fact that we've saved some in expenses. And at that point in time, I would hope that we would go back and put them into the services that directly affect the public. You know, so materials, programs, databases, anything that that directly affect the public. I am super pleased that we are chipping away, and I know it's chipping away. It's not perfect, but at the salaries, I think that's wonderful. You know, we're working hard at that.
So I think what I heard was there was still some question about databases, about reviewing some more information. I can bring that on Tuesday, or is it we're okay with leaving the line item the way it is, and then we'll have a bigger discussion when I get a chance to kind of bring in all of the staff's recommendations and review all of our use and kind of give it to you in a snapshot. Or communications, is everybody wanting to reduce communications? Because I happen to know so much of it is the summer reading, publication. So I'm just looking for some more direction to what to do and bring to Tuesday.
You don't have a lot of time to build up a big presentation. Is that we don't, is that correct?
You know, if you want to reduce some aspect of our databases, I would just say take $10,000 off of this and put it somewhere else, and then we'll have a longer conversation at a later time. And if you're really interested in reducing communications, take a portion of communications, and then we'll come back with a plan.
But I don't know why. I mean, if we have a balanced budget, why do we need to?
You guys can be done today, and I'm gonna be real and say I would be so happy because a lot of work and time has gone into this, and it sounds like people are sort of feeling more comfortable with it. But I'm just looking for direction for next Tuesday. It's really our last day. Janelle's gonna have to come in and put in the new property tax numbers, put in the real numbers, and then figure out what I've done here and all of that and make it right. So there's very limited staff time. So if we're good, then we can talk about databases down the road, and I'm happy to do that.
I would like to get the material collections back up. I mean, we cut it 130,000, and between the two columns, it's almost 30,000 difference.
We might be able to do that with Janelle, with what we'll have on Tuesday that we don't have now is the big check, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have the numbers.
We'll have the numbers way more clearly defined. And that may be exactly the time when we will be able to increase our collection.
I would just look to go a little cheaper, 5,000 less on communications if it's really publications is what's doing that, or where that money goes. And
And I do, how about
And
database?
in databases, if you could take out 15,000 and put those both back, put 20,000 back into materials, maybe it's what I would look at.
I feel strongly about, 15,000, we could definitely take out of databases. So, I don't know how everybody else is feeling, but I'm okay with 15,000 coming out of databases. And then we'll kind of review what database it is that we choose to eliminate, but 15 coming out of databases is probably, put that in collections could work. Again, I'd like to find out what we can do and if we can get sponsorship, but to Katie's point, sometimes we'll find cost savings or get a grant or have items, and then, if the money's not spent, then it can go to another line item. So.
We have worked hard over time to have a decent kind of public information, marketing, however you want to call it. And it isn't a huge line item. And I would be hesitant to cut that without more knowledge. And that may take more time than we have.
I'm a little nervous about our postage too, right? Because we just talked about postage. So there's a little bit here, a little bit there. We don't know.
I'm good with taking 50,000 from databases and put it into collections. And the communications, I'm not sure exactly how much we can cut. I would be okay with cutting some, but I would need more information on how much those books cost and what the savings would be if we went to a different format.
I agree, with what Rochelle just said.
I'm okay with regard to databases, reducing that. The communications one, again, it's a lack of knowledge of knowing how much, for example, that booklet that was printed that Tim keeps referring to, I didn't have appreciation for cost of printing until I ran a campaign. And then I learned printing is expensive, but I don't know what other things get published or what other, I don't understand that line. I mean, I don't have any details on it, so I can't beat it up if I don't have any detail. So maybe I'm okay with it.
Have we done all of the communication publishing for the year we're gonna do? Because we're at 58% looking at this, budget up to now,
I believe there's currently pricing for like t-shirts. I know we ordered t-shirts. Then what?
Oh, I was gonna say, with me coming on board after a 3-month vacancy of the position, no communications dollars were spent. And so we are now playing catch up to try to spend the communications budget, and communications includes marketing too. So that is everything we do for the entire year is $22,000. If you break that down per month, other libraries that I've done campaigns that have communication budgets of $50,000, $67,000.
Well, please don't try to catch up if you don't have to.
To emphasize that yes, the summer reading is a big part of that budget. We can reevaluate of getting a print sponsor, for if we have less programs, it's gonna be less pages. We have other options, but $22,000 for 7 libraries with 1 mobile unit for an entire year is really hard already.
But you spent 15,000 so far, so you've done it for this year. Can we do it again next year?
So we're reviewing a whole bunch of our print brochures too, and that's included.
I was gonna say, everything that you see printed at the library, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Does that include?
That just also does not include my time designing and any of it. The
So-
22,000 is every printed thing you see in the library.
So all the bookmarks, all of that stuff, all of the stuff that we see out there. So when you take that and to Tom's point that he thought it was expensive, so we must be doing a bang up job because we've got, I have a lot of bookmarks. I really like bookmarks.
And the line item has been reduced already. From 25 to 22.5, so So it has been reduced from last year.
But we've only spent 15,000.
That's not true.
It's not true? Year to
I
date,
could, well, this is and this is the, when was that, at the end of June?
At the end of June. It's almost the end of July now.
so this is not year to date.
What's the
We
percentage?
do those every month. So in order to play catch up for not having a marketing or communications person, I have been meeting with vendors, getting quotes, doing prices, purchasing things we need. Because if the communications budget is not spent this year, that money goes away. That also includes any promotional materials. And printing is expensive.
It's like postage, it just needs to be monitored. So I mean, I personally would just recommend the 15,000 on a data basis, put into the budget. And then, you know,
We will have other numbers, you know, and we will, you know, my suspicion is just based upon looking at this month's financial report, that we are going to be coming in under budget and on a bunch of expense items. And so we will end up with a bigger carry forward than we expected. And we will end up having money to be able to put in other accounts. That has happened to us in other years. It often happens to us.
Why is this year to date sheet? I look at the top now, I didn't realize that it's May 30 through into May 31st. I thought it was released.
The financial statements that we've had today were through the end of June. I mean, that's what it said. That's what that's
the old one.
Yeah, you have a different.
Oh, I bet so.
That was with your purple, yeah.
Yeah, because the communications is at 60% right now, and we're at 75, so that's not a big discrepancy. So maybe you're looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, 59. We got a new one today.
That's what it was.
A new one came in your packet that is up to the end of June. Every month we have the month before.
I got the wrong one.
Yeah. It was the-
So, are we gonna give the director some direction, concrete direction, so she knows what she's gonna do for next meeting?
They both sound like concrete, 50,000 out of databases and add that to collections.
Otherwise, this looks wonderful.
I feel okay with getting Janelle to work her magic and then bring it to you. So just prepare some conversation and changes in numbers, like I said, so it's not going to be. But again, the direction that Janelle and I will work with anything that comes up, we'll put it in the collection budget, because that's also what I'm hearing.
Okay, so we haven't even talked about this, but I'm just curious about, it's line 31, emerging technologies. Since it started, I believe it was at 2,000, and last year, I think this is when we bumped up to 4. Do you remember, Michelle or Katie?
Sure.
And because I remember everybody was so excited because it's such a great program. So I'm just wondering what anybody, and the new trustees haven't, what's his name, Nick? You guys haven't experienced Nick yet. You're gonna love him. You know him? Yeah. What he does out in the community is actually amazing. I'm just wondering if anybody's interested in adding even 500 back to his, or to that line item. I'm sorry, it's not his, but, and that is line item 31.
It's a very small line item, and I haven't seen one of his presentations.
And it's that giant, bus thingy.
So what does he do with this? He buys new items for new projects, or the bus is, it's like the library of things. It just keeps reusing stuff he already has. It just adds to it.
It's a little bit of both.
Mainly replacement and materials that we give out, and, you know, they do things like the virtual reality, and they do all kinds of different things.
Building robots, and I know one of the things he did last year was called something like deconstruct the computer or something like that. but those were, I think those were donated, devices. And then he literally had people that are interested, kids, just be able to take these computers apart so that they can, see how they're made. I mean, I just think his programs are so amazing. And I'm just wondering if anybody would be interested in adding 500 to his line item.
Yes, I would. But I would also like to say something about emerging technologies. When it was first introduced to us, I wasn't getting it. But Nick brought forward the term digital literacy. And that's what emerging technologies is. It's increasing digital literacy in our communities. And all of a sudden it clicked for me. And digital literacy is, now kids get it. But also, so he's presenting to that, but he also presents to adults who absolutely we all know in our community, I think we're all needing some digital literacy. And so when he did that, when he said that, that made much more sense to me. So I certainly would be willing to increase it by $500 for the year. And that's such a little amount that we could spend a lot of time on if we wanted.
I'm open to the idea, but I haven't fully committed yet.
I'm indifferent. Either way, it's not a lot of money. I don't know the program. So in the absence of facts, I abstain.
I'd like to hear from Nick, or I could talk to him out there sometime, but what would he do if he had more money? But I'm sure he's got ideas.
Well, he's actually not getting more. He's getting considerably less.
Did we find out the date when he did his presentation, if that was one of our recorded ones? Maybe we can just send out the recording.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, and that brings up to the board's calendar, so I'll revise that for what I know. And we have all of our sort of coordinators do presentations. But yes, the last one would be a great one this time.
Otherwise, can we encourage our director to go forward and with this budget and bring us a new one? And work with Janelle? Does that sound good? Sounds good to me. Thank you.
I have one question. Are there a lot of number jockeying issues left when Janelle does show back up? Which one of them, I think, was taxes coming in. Was that one of them? Were there many other line items on there that are subject to any significant movement? Until when she comes back and refines these numbers, because we only have, I think, one more budget session before the public hearing.
I'll think generally, Janelle is conservative in her property tax estimate, so like to Katie's point, let's probably see it go up a little bit in that direction rather than it going down. Some of the information we just aren't gonna have, like cost of insurance or, we have an estimate in based on a phone call. I don't believe it'll be much more than the property tax that'll change.
What's the,
We get it from the county on Monday.
no, the annual cycle on iCrimp that just made me, are we paid up to a certain time, or is iCrimp going to give us a new quote as it go our fiscal year? Or, when we get a new number for the next year?
I didn't bring it with me, I normally do. I can bring you that information. I don't have it off the top of my head what cycle is. I can say that I'm very impressed coming in at the low risk that this entity has been providing for several years. So we've had a really great staff. Not a lot of car accidents, not a lot of high risk activities, not a lot of employment things. So their annual payment is very modest currently.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's like
phenomenal.
The staff historically are rock stars, is what I would characterize.
Okay, so are we ready to move on? Okay, so next thing is trustee continuing education. Which you have
Yeah,
of course.
So in your packet too, on your table, I brought some stuff. I'll mention that, Colton Boyles was only partially able to attend today and that we will maybe work together on some continuing education topics coming down the pike. But I thought today, it might be good to just take a look at our job descriptions, starting with the trustee job description. So this was in your guys' packet that I handed out at that first budget meeting, if you guys recall. It talked about trustees, and I will say, how impressed I am with all of the board, in terms of their work ethic. And I did put together kind of a summary that's on the top. I will say that, it says, trustees, must be able to attend monthly and special meetings and spend about 5 to 10 hours per month on district business. And that's Idaho, code 33-2720, and that is in our job description for trustees. And just making some basic summaries. If we assume 2 hours of prep per board meeting and the meeting times themselves, that from June 15th to today, we have had a total of 60 hours spent by our trustees. And so that's incredible. I hope it's not going to be forever and ever, but I know we've had a lot of work to get done. And so I just wanted to point that out. And then again, there's just some highlighted items that I thought would be good to kind of go over. It does talk about the purpose of the position. And then you do see under examples, and some of that stuff you guys are doing right now, knowledge of the principles of intellectual freedom and access to information, budgeting, public and community relations, etiquette and practices of public boards, transparency, district's demographic, political, geographic, and economic factors. I also brought, because I thought it would be a good sort of looking at the two jobs sort of side by side. They really are complementary roles between trustees and the director. And again, you can kind of see some of the items that I've highlighted as well.
Can I ask a question about, because you mentioned that, Mr. Boyles had been in the meeting here, he was here on your computer, is that it?
I believe so. And it listed guest, so, but he was someone that I had sent a Teams invite to, so I'm assuming it was him. As I understand, he had to be out of town. And so was gonna.
Well, because he was here, last meeting. I believe that before, when we had an attorney present, we would talk about it as a board, that the attorney was gonna be there. Just because I'm assuming he wasn't here last meeting just for his own education. I assume he was being paid. And if he was online today, I wonder if he was being paid. And when do we as a board decide when the attorney's gonna be here? Because I'm pretty sure that's what we always did before. We would talk about, do we want our attorney here? Do we need our attorney here? So I'm just wondering how that is gonna be set up with him. And are we gonna have a decide, since the board's the one that hired him, are we also gonna be the one saying if he's gonna be here and why is he here?
I think he's trying to get a feel for how the board works together. And yeah, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the attorney, but I think maybe for a short period of time, it would be a good idea to have him here.
I would really like that identified, because at this point in time, I saw him here on Monday for 2 hours and on Tuesday for 2 hours. And then I don't know how many today, but that's at $275 an hour. At least for those 2 days that he was here, that's $1,100. And we're talking, I mean, I realize that but we don't have any control over that, and I have no idea, and it doesn't seem like there's much input. It worries me at $275 that somehow he's getting invited, and I don't know how, and I don't know why. So I'd like more clarification on that to understand that. I mean, if he needed a certain amount of time that he wanted to spend in board meetings, I would have liked to be able to negotiate that. So I just like more information about that and not having just knee-jerk invited.
Yeah, I would, like to have more discussion on that. I know, back in, so I guess it was June when, not too long after Alexa first came, she had mentioned having an attorney at all of our board meetings, which, I was like, wow.
Yeah, that would be expensive.
Anyway, yeah, we should discuss that.
Do we want to add it to an agenda coming up?
Just,
I have a question about it. What did we do before? Because I watched hours and hours and hours of board meetings as I was running or before I decided to run. I don't know why I did run after I saw those meetings. No, I'm only kidding, but there were a lot of meetings where there was no lawyer present, and then there were meetings where there was a lawyer present. What did we do in the past? What determined whether we were going to have a lawyer present in the past? Just as an idea so we can think about this going forward.
there were topics where we decided we needed an attorney. And so it was very clear. She was here to address certain topics. And some of them were for board education. I know that when the new trustees came on, she came and gave a presentation on basically the legal aspects and the legal aspects of being a board member, a new board member. So she was brought on for that. And then, you know, if we had problems, she was brought on a couple of times for an executive session, but always because the whole board was aware that she would be attending. We have never, ever had an attorney present at every meeting. I think that we all thought that cost is prohibitive. But everybody knew why an attorney was coming.
And one other reason we'd have her, we would discuss it before, is if there was a policy that we were working on, that we were being cautious that we were following the Idaho state law. That's another reason we have her. I want to say, like even the kids card, when we talked about that, didn't we have her here? I don't know if she didn't have her here. It was some policy that she came in, or we had a review. When it's some sort of policy that we're making a change on that might affect, we'd have to stay in the boundaries of the law. That'd be another reason we'd have her. But we'd always discuss it to have the attorney present.
Could we, I also received a copy of the contract and I have some confusion about it, some questions. Can we add that to a small portion of Tuesday's meeting? We still have time, don't we, to add on the agenda?
You do have time.
Could we add that to the end?
Is this clarification of the agreement that's been signed or?
Yes,
Because
I don't, there are things that I have questions and some confusion and I would like to talk about it.
Okay, and does that need to be an executive session?
No, I don't think so.
Does he need to be here to explain it or?
I'm just asked, I have no idea. But what could happen is we could talk about the problems and then we could decide whether we needed him to answer them. We don't need to pay for it. I'd rather do that. Just talk as a board. There's just some clarification and Alexa may be able to do that. And I just would like to talk about it. Typically what has happened is contracts have been given to us at some point or another to discuss. Either, I'm assuming that there were contracts. I don't remember contracts that were signed and we didn't receive the whole contract and we weren't able to discuss it before it was signed. So this is the first contract that I remember that was ever been signed, and we would certainly give it to the director to sign, but we were always aware of what was being signed. And I wasn't. Maybe my remission, so that's all I'm asking is, I don't think that we need the attorney here. I just would like to have you signed it, even if, I'm assuming you guys had clarification on it.
Well, there's another contract that was signed, Alexa, that was in our packet that wasn't talked about. And that's with Stevens Clay. Maybe we should talk about that too.
I think that would be good.
Because that was,
'Cause
I was totally unaware, even that day, I didn't look at my packet, I was unaware that you had done that.
Yeah.
So we have apparently 2 attorneys now.
No, he withdrew. He
No,
withdrew, didn't he?
Stevens Clay.
Oh, Stevens Clay. Oh,
There's another contract in there, and that was for public information requests and something else about reduction in force. I don't know if that means layoff or what. I don't understand what that contract is, and you signed that without talking to us.
Yeah, and like I said, in sense, Mr. Holden, took on Monday afternoon. We've had a couple of conversations. I'm feeling slightly uncomfortable because we're not on the agenda with this, but I'm happy to, talk about the transition plan that we've established for public records and moving forward and the coordination.
I'm a little concerned that we were given considerable pushback and resistance since back when we first got on the board, when Michelle started working on hiring Colton Boyle Company. We engaged him now, there's a contract signed, and I feel like we're getting now some after the fact dragging this on again. There's a contract out there. And if you have a specific question, Katie, my opinion is, what's your question? Because you were, alluding that we were hiding things before. Well, what do you want to know? And can't you just put an email out and ask, okay, what is your question about the contract? It's done, it's signed, there it is. But we also do have 2 other law firms out there on contract, unless those contracts have been terminated.
I would like to put it on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting, and I will ask those questions then.
Okay, so assuming that we went through all the financial stuff on Tuesday, we could put it at the end.
Thank you. It's
you
just
guys
a
are-
discussion.
you guys
There's
are-
no action item.
So if you guys are interested.
I'm fine.
Yeah, we talked, what's the status of all 3 attorney contracts?
Yeah, that's.
I don't even know if Gridley's.
So that's probably actually.
Do we have a letter of resignation? Maybe we don't even have to talk about that.
That's why I said I have lots to update, but on, I think it's great to put on the
Okay,
agenda.
that's perfect.
I'm feeling nervous about, we keep talking about this.
Okay, well, we were on the discussion of future agenda requests, so now it's discussed at the end of Tuesday's agenda. Are there any other agenda requests?
I would like to make a request. We were unable to go to Harrison today just because we knew we were gonna expect a large crowd for public comment. There's been a request and a suggestion that we do a tour for trustees to different locations, and so I would like to be able to maybe find a date, or I can send out some possible times where we can kind of caravan or create some touring in our libraries. And so if you guys are amenable, Saturday mornings, is it Friday afternoons, is it, when would you want to go? And yeah,
That's right. We wouldn't have to worry about being closed because we don't have a meeting. So we'd just be touring. Okay.
yeah, just touring and meeting some of them. We could do one side of the county, the other side of the county, whatever you guys want. But I can put something together. I just wanted to kind of find out if I send you guys some dates, are you open to that?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, that was done when I was the first trustee. I think we visited 4 different libraries.
Yes, and so we have new trustees, and so I'd just like to send out some notices and we'll plan some trips. Okay.
Not all of them at once, maybe Pinehurst and.
We have it, Pinehurst already on
Yep, next week.
next.
Oh, so this wouldn't need to be much more than Harrison to go that way. I don't want to combine it with Apple. With the other
I'll
direction.
come up with a plan and I'll send it out if that's okay. Some possible dates and moving forward. I just wanted to make sure I brought that up. I felt very bad that we couldn't go to Harrison today.
All right, so that would be the only special meeting date that we need to figure out coming up. So we will be meeting next Tuesday, the 25th of July from 2 to 4 here at Post Falls.
One more thing in terms of Pinehurst, that will also be, their room isn't very big either. Should we do the same things? If we're going to take a tour, we could take a tour. Should we do the same thing in terms of meeting here instead?
In some ways, it's easier for staff and the public just because of the comfort level and the capacity.
Yeah, it's a much bigger capacity. If it's, I was looking at that. So could we change that? I mean, is that?
I would feel positive about changing it if we, like you guys already have kind of committed to a tour. Like I said, it's kind of why we were putting our meetings there so we could tour, but if we're going to do a separate tour.
What is September 21? Is it a
Thursday?
Is it? Could we just
We're supposed to be
do,
Pinehurst.
right, could we just do 2 to 5 here and then do a tour?
Those falls.
No. Could we do our regular meeting on the 21st, September 21st, from 2 to 5 here, with the understanding that we would be doing a tour of those, I would assume it would be Pinehurst and Harrison, they would be put together. And then we would divide it up, we wouldn't do them all. And then would Brenda be okay with that? I think we've hurt people's feelings, but maybe they understand this year. She might be willing to come and give us her presentation. She has in the past.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding the proposal.
The
We have
proposal,
September, let me finish. We have a meeting scheduled for September 21st from 9 until 12:30 at Pinehurst. I'm not sure what you're proposing.
the meeting room, I know that you've even been there. The meeting
I've
room,
been there.
the meeting room at Pinehurst isn't very big.
Mhm.
And because we have had a lot of public comment, that's why we're here today instead of in Harrison. What I was suggesting is that we have our regular meeting on the 21st at the regular time from 2 to 5 here. And because of, so that we can have public comment. And then we would have a tour. We already were
On a
talking
later
about a
day.
tour on another day.
Oh, another day.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm very sorry.
It'll be a long day. I'm gonna get a salary.
Okay, so we have a tour on another day and
Oh.
that would
Okay.
somewhat suffice the fact that we weren't there.
Pinehurst and Harrison are not exactly in the same directions. I mean, that makes for a long day. And then if we do that, the people in Pinehurst don't get a chance to do public comment. I thought that was also part of the reason for going to face to place.
Now, that's an interesting take.
We did not have any public comment in Pinehurst last year.
I think this guy was in the
I
audience.
was in the audience. I was observing. Yeah, but if we do go down, wait, so you're saying we should or shouldn't have a meeting itself in Harrison?
In Pinehurst, I was just wondering
Right.
if the room is big enough for all the public comment people that might want to come for public comment.
For
Do
which
you know
location?
at Pinehurst?
Oh,
We have
Is it-
about 1 minute. unless you
This
wanna
is the
extend
Pinehurst meeting in the whole library? I mean, there isn't really another room, is there?
Yes, there's a room, but it's
But you
not
could
very
do-
big.
You could do like what you did at Spirit Lake, could just
If it was
close
closed.
the library, basically.
I'm gonna have to say, I like what Rochelle said, and I lost track of that, because I've always agreed with that. Us going out there has to do with us being in that community. And if people here don't want to make that trip, or there's not enough room, too bad, kind of, because it gives the people out there an opportunity to come to their local library and speak to us. I'm actually in agreement with that, even though it is 9 AM.
I think because Harrison was brought up at some of these meetings, the whole town might show up, so it might be busy even when we have our meeting there. If we do.
Today.
That was today.
Oh, it was, well, they didn't forget though.
Okay, so are we gonna leave it, the schedule as is, or are we gonna extend the meeting?
That's fine. I was just suggesting because of the room.
Okay, yeah.
I move that we adjourn.
So is Alexa gonna give us the proposed dates for a field?
Yeah. Okay, it has been moved to adjourn. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.